Chapter 7. Newcastle United was a club in crisis. After the traumas and uncertainties of recent seasons, a spate of injuries was the last thing the club needed. But as the winter moved on, it seemed there was more first-team squad players on treatment tables than they were fit to make it onto the pitch. It was the worst injury situation anyone could remember, and it had been getting worse since the beginning of the season. Some early injuries cleared up quickly, but others lingered or were long-term, and the squad had been steadily weakened and thinned. The manager brought in new players during the January transfer window, but suffered a further blow when two of the new additions were disabled within their first couple of games. Doommongers began talking about a jinx, while more sensible heads knew only too well that it was a run of bad luck that could hit any club at any time. But that didn't make it any easier to cope with. Fortunately for Santi, he'd remained injury-free. But the situation meant that extra responsibility fell onto his shoulders and onto the other fully fit veteran players. The young reserves and the newcomers had to be nursed and shepherded into the rigors of the Premiership, which many soccer observers reckon was not only the best but also the toughest league in the world. It wasn't the ideal time to be facing Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, especially as they were riding high in the Premiership and fighting hard for the title under the guidance of Luis Felipe Scolari, or Big Phil, as the press liked to call him. And as Santi took his position for the kickoff, he couldn't help but acknowledge that while almost every member of the Chelsea team was a full international and a household name, many of the Newcastle players would be largely unknown to anyone outside Newcastle. Chelsea, organized and experienced, began the match full of movement and ideas, with Frank Lampard and the little Portuguese maestro Deco pulling the strings and orchestrating many of the early attacks. Newcastle was stretched but holding on, restricted to the occasional counterattack, which mostly foundered amid Chelsea's defense, John Terry and Ricardo Carvalho. Joe Cole went close for Chelsea, driving in a shot from 20 yards out, which Shea Given, excellent as always, did well to turn around the post. Santi was playing deeper than he would have liked, protecting his midfield from the surging runs of Deco and Cole through the middle and of fullback Ashley Cole down the flanks. But close to the end of the first period, and totally out of the blue, Newcastle found itself one up, courtesy of Santiago Muñez. Collecting the ball 10 yards inside the Chelsea half, he set off on a rampaging run, with a change of pace that left the opposition defenders floundering. Santi exchanged a neat 1-2 with Nicky Butt and then struck a ferocious shot which stayed low and went under the outstretched arms of the diving Petr Cech. It was a sensational goal, one that was destined to win television's Goal of the Month competition, and it stunned the Stamford Bridge faithful into near silence. When halftime came soon after, the traveling Toon Army supporters were still buzzing with the quality of the Muñez strike. But that was as good as it got for Newcastle. Chelsea came out in the second period and dominated, scoring through Lampard and Joe Cole. It could have been, and probably should have been, more, but the Newcastle youngsters defended heroically up to the last minute. Santi trudged wearily from the field. In the following international week, players from the Premiership would jet off all over the globe to join their national squads for training, and the first of several practice matches leading up to the World Cup tournament in the summer. Santi was relieved that his next match would be in the colors of Spain and grateful that the coming weekend would give Newcastle some breathing space and a chance to get some of the injured players off the treatment tables and back on the field. End of Chapter 7.